With just 48 hours to go, Big Ben was lit up overnight. Look at that. Spectacular, in a colourful display ahead of the coronation this weekend. It follows senior royals who were spotted at Westminster Abbey yesterday. They were obviously rehearsing. But as Charles and Camilla prepare to be crowned this morning, we're looking at the love story at the heart of the ceremony. It is astonishing, isn't it? I'm joined by Daily Mail columnist Sarah Vine and editor of the Daily Mirror, Alison Phillips. It's a love story, but there's been a big cost along the way, and it's so interesting, Sarah, that you were saying it feels more like a wedding than a coronation. It's a very interesting take.
It feels like, well, partly because of the guests, there's a lot of celebrities going, and also just partly because I think, you know, they got married in 2005. It was quite low-key.
Yep.
It sort of feels like those people who do renewing their vows in front of the world. It's because their journey has been extraordinary as a couple when you think about it.
It has.
I mean, they weren't allowed. I mean, he wasn't allowed to marry the person he wanted to marry. He married Diana. It went all horribly, horribly, horribly wrong. And you just think, he's had to really fight for her, and he really has. He's a real romantic. And the fact that she's going to be crowned queen, she is his queen, and he wants everyone to know that, and he wants it all to happen in front of everybody so that they can all finally acknowledge her status in his heart. It is. Yeah. I mean, you think they're sort of in their 70s. It's hard to think of them as a couple of lovebirds.
Yeah.
But actually they are. It is a real romance, don't you think? And he has sort of moved heaven and earth to make it happen, because constitutionally, what he's doing is unheard of.
That's
no heir to the British throne has ever married a divorced woman and kept his crown. Well, I mean, Edward VIII obviously went off.
He abdicated,
I mean, he really has revolutionised it.
It is interesting, isn't it? Alison, do you think that there will be, you mentioned Princess Diana, obviously, the ghost of Princess Diana somehow. You know, a lot of people are doing that sort of what-if thing. You know, if she was still here and what would have happened, and, you know, would she ever... She said herself she would never be queen, didn't she?
Yeah, and I do think for many people, Diana is still there. I mean, we can't forget the outpouring of grief there was when she died. I mean, that was something that we'd never seen in this country before. And for a lot... I mean, I just know from some of the readers' letters that we get in at the Mirror, it's very much split between those who want the King to have this new opportunity with the woman that he's always loved, against those that will always sort of shine light for Diana and say, if only she had been given that opportunity. So I think there is a split, but I think also so much time has gone by now. As Sarah was saying there earlier, when they did get married, it was a very muted, low-key occasion, because I think they were so conscious that there was still this kind of concern about what had happened to Diana. And so now I think that's past. The King very much wants Camilla at his side as queen.
I mean, I think the thing is, Diana is there in spirit because of the problems that he's got with Harry, which all come from the I mean, Harry has made no secret.
Oh, he was brutal
Camilla,
in the book about
and he was
Camilla.
very, very brutal. And we had a survey this week in the Mail. You know, Diana is still up there. Her approval ratings are 63%.
And I think Camilla's is about 30.
Camilla's are about 32.
Yeah. Right.
So the British public still, and she's been dead for 25 years, and she still is seen as, you know, an absolute
And you're right,
icon.
because obviously, you know, we saw with Harry, there's obviously deep resentment against his stepmother. The Queen, the late Queen, said, you know, that she would be Queen Consort. But he's really...
A lot of Rye readers are quite uncomfortable with the title and the fact that she's being anointed. They sort of... Lots of people understand that Camilla is great for Charles, and they can see that they're soulmates. You know, you just have to look at the footage of them. They're really great together. And she's a good egg, and people really do like her. And she is a lovely woman. She's a really nice woman. And very clever, very funny, all of those things. But they're just like... It's just a bit... It's just a bridge too far.
But I think as well, we were sort of told originally she would never be queen. And so the goalposts have moved slightly. And then, but the idea that it was almost like the late Queen's final gift to her son was to then say, oh, and she will be Queen Consort, which was what happened at the early part of last year. So I still think there is some nervousness and scepticism.
I mean, when Edward VIII died, his dying wish was that Simpson be given some sort of title, and the Queen never did it.
No, they didn't. They absolutely
you know,
didn't.
he really has changed those
You're
rules.
right, he has been, he's actually been a moderniser.
Well, I mean, everyone talks about the young royals being the moderniser, but in
yeah.
terms of constitutional modernisation, I think Charles has really pushed
And I know also, like, Charles's sort of camp very much wanted this almost to be like a vindication for second wives everywhere as well, which is interesting, and that why should she be looked down upon because she was the second wife, not the first? And I think that's an interesting point as well, because if this is sort of the happy ending that he was always coming towards and they were always going to, then why should that be regarded as lesser in some way?
It's interesting, isn't it? I wonder if I don't think the relationship will change just because they've both, you know, been crowned.
No.
I think it's going to be the same. She's just always going
Except
to be the
I think
person
he is going to be under even more pressure than he has been before.
Yeah, and she'll have to smooth.
Clearly quite a sensitive character, quite brittle perhaps in some ways, and she's the one that's going to have to do a lot of
I mean,
looking
he's
after.
also quite damaged, I think.
Very.
You know, he had this, you know, very difficult upbringing.
Yeah, that's true.
Very, you know, he was always quite a sensitive person, and he didn't, you know, he
got
had
sent
his
to
own
boarding, didn't he?
struggles.
Yeah,
Yes,
and his
exactly.
father, sort of very difficult relationship. And I think she gives him that, she's that sense of being grounded, and she had a perfectly normal life, really.
I mean, the thing about her is she's very warm.
Yes.
She's a very warm, kind, sort of, but also just capable person. You sort of, with Camilla, you think, oh, you know, it wouldn't matter what it was, she'd be fine. She'd
go on
sort
with
it
it.
out. She'd deal with it, you know. And she's, and I think that security, he gives her that, she gives him that security that he really needs. But I do think, you know, Harry is, you know, this big question about whether Harry's coming, when he's going to come, is he going to stay? This is all to do with Diana ultimately, and it's very difficult to bury those.
Oh, to see his mum, and it was horrendous. I mean, you can cut him a lot of slack for that.
Oh, it was horrendous what happened to her with her death, but also before that, he will have known everything that was going on inside that marriage.
Yes, don't forget there were all those tapes of
and he was seeing it day in, day out.
No, it's very sad. I think he'll parachute in and parachute back out and go back to his kids and his
And
next
that's
life.
fine.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, those Windsor men, when they fall hard.
They do,
Yeah,
you're right.
you know, Charles and Camilla, and obviously Harry's given up so much for Meghan, really everything. And, you know, even Bertie, when he had proposed to the Queen Mother, she turned him down twice.
Yeah, it's because it's always they need a rock to cling on to, don't they? And then they cling on to it.
That's interesting. Thank you both. It's fascinating, isn't it? Absolutely fascinating.